Hello, everyone. We are live. This is the Esports Trade Association LinkedIn Live. My name is Claire Lebeaux. I'm Chief Advancement Officer of NASEF. I will once say what that acronym stands for because it's a mouthful. It is the Network of Academic and Scholastic Esports Federations. And our mission is to leverage interest in esports in order to teach about career pathways. And of course, an important part of that is the collegiate scene. And so I'm super excited to have these folks on the stream with us today. I think we'll do a quick hello, my name is, and then jump into the content. So go ahead, Kevin, take it away. We'll go clockwise.
I'll start this off. Hello, my name is Kevin Buchmiller. I am the Director of Esports over here at Cal State University-Dominguez Hills. So we're one of 23 Cal State campuses, one of the largest networks in the nation. And we've been having esports on campus sort of open in an official capacity since last year. It's been a project for a long time, and I've been with the university for about 2 years now.
Great.
Awesome. I'm Mike Aguilar, or Moog. I'm the Director of Esports for the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. And I've been working on this project for a little over 7 years now, building it from scratch all the way up to a community that's over 3,400 members deep and over 220 students in development, focused on pathways to industry versus pathways to esports.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Sari, Kitelyn. I don't have a cool nickname like Moog does. I'm with Full Sail University, which is in Orlando, Florida. I've been working on their esports program, building that since about 2015. I've been with the university since 2006. And just our university itself focuses on degrees for the entertainment, media, arts, and technology industry. So it's an interesting and unique university for sure. And because of that, a lot of what we do regarding esports is related to the industry itself, because that is a big part of what it is that we're teaching at Full Sail. And it's an interesting approach, but I'm excited to be here today to talk about it.
Awesome. I love the that you focus on the arts. That's something that at NASEF we started off always talking about STEM careers, STEM futures, and we've been just drawn into the arts, media, and entertainment industry. And it's so fun to connect with those people. And I mean, esports is so broad, right? There are so many different things you can pursue. So that's really cool, Sari. So let's go ahead. I do have some slides that we are going to add here in just a second, so I can give you a little bit of background on NASEF and on the collegiate industry. But as we're waiting for that, why don't we go ahead and, Kevin, just tell us a little bit about what esports is like on your campus.
Sure. So we can kind of jump right into that. Like you said, it's very broad. So we've sort of developed a 5 sort of pillar approach to that. And of those 5 pillars, the first one we always list is our academics and research, because for us, it's all about giving students the skills to be successful, whether those are hard skills, soft skills, things they'll learn in the classroom, things they'll learn by being on a team. But ultimately, we want them to be successful after their time in college. So academics and research is a big part of that. And then the rest are kind of all equally important, where we have the competition, of course, where students get to compete against other schools nationwide. We have the community engagement piece, where there's a lot of surrounding communities we connect with. We're just south of Compton, California, so many of you may be familiar with that. So we have a huge underrepresented population that we're able to support and also give back to that school district. And in fact, I'll be at Compton Unified School District Thursday for a STEAM Fest that they're hosting to sort of give back to that community as well. We have the entertainment, so we broadcast everything to Twitch. All the content you see on our social medias is all student driven. We used to say it's 100% created. Now we have some full-time support because it got a little unwieldy, but it's nearly 100% student created. And then finally, there's the career development. So we'll bring in panelists, workshops, seminars, guest speakers, just anything we can do to connect these students to external groups. And right now, we're one of the largest student groups on campus. We're just over 600 members for the student club, and then we operate in tandem as a program. 14 teams, 104 players, and it's continuing to grow. And that's accounting now for about 10% of all of campus. So we're getting really close to that number.
That's awesome. So we have a couple images here of your lab. Anything you want to describe? What what's going on in this?
Yeah, just a huge shout out to everyone in the industry that's been able to be a part of our partners and help make this possible. It's no secret that public education has a budget challenge, and so it wouldn't be possible without the amazing partners that we have highlighted on our jerseys and all our socials and things like that. But yeah, right now we've expanded out to 38 gaming stations. We have 2 stations in the broadcast room you can see here on the right. So students are creating those Twitch productions, use a TriCaster, so a little bit more of like a higher sort of industry standard piece of equipment that's used rather than just like OBS studios all the time, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but we definitely want to give students the tools to have hands-on experience with different technology. The classroom side you can see here on the left. So we have a whole section of 20 PCs configured just for a classroom learning environment with a lectern up front and 2 touch boards. And then the back side, we kind of saw it earlier, but the rest of the room is there for competition and productivity space. So, and then behind you here, there's from where the camera's at, behind you is kind of the reception area. But really important for us as well is that the whole space is free for students to use. So if they have a Toro login, they can come in and play for free. We don't charge by hour. And again, that's part of that underrepresented group. We don't want to be nickel and diming our students. So.
That's really cool. And I'm going to call out something that you said about how important the partners are, because this stream we are on with the Esports Trade Association, and it is a great association that is a blend of people in the industry that are interested in growing in esports, people who are brand new to the esports world and building up businesses, to larger organizations like Coca-Cola that's sponsoring the leadership series through Esports Trade Association. So I just want to emphasize for you leaders on the corporate side, these universities are absolutely a great place for you to make connections and to start to get your, your message out and your connections built to the generation that's coming up. So let's see. One more. There we go.
So just a closer up image, and some of the signage has changed since these photos were taken, but and then these yellow chairs here are more of a lounging space. We have all the latest consoles there, and our whole room is flexible. So there's a lot of TVs you'll see around the space, and it can be reconfigured so that the Xbox can be on this side of the room. It can be projected to the other side. The broadcast can take up any of the screens, half of them, one of them. It's very flexible in that way.
Right. That's awesome. All right. And then Moog, let's learn about your space here.
Absolutely.
And your program. Blend it all together.
The program is founded on one single narrative. Gaming is for everyone, period. And if you are anybody that likes to add the comma and or comma but to that statement, this isn't for you. And it goes down to the simple kind of celebration of something that almost every gamer can celebrate, which is somebody sat your butt on a couch and whooped you in Mario Kart, whether that was a family member, a sibling, a parent. Somebody introduced you into this world of digital entertainment. And through that can inspire either just lurking in the shadows as part of the community or becoming something bigger or becoming something more, if this is your pathway. So being in the part of, central United States, there's a lot of oil and gas, there's a lot of aerospace coming in, these types of things. And those are the kind of tried and true things that you hear about when we talk about K-12 development and youth development a lot. And so the cultural shift that we all represent is kind of our biggest challenge, has always been our biggest challenges of providing the mindset that these are possibilities and pathways. So past that narrative and past that kind of inclusive kind of mentality, that path to industry mentality I mentioned earlier focuses on how do I meet students where they're at? And so allow gaming to be this simply approaching opportunity. And if they want to be the sweaty COD player, then so be it. Like if they want to, we can create that pathway. We create those teams. They represent the university formally at a varsity level program. However, if they just want to have people to meet with, like for instance, part of what's not in these photos that you're about to see is that we announced our first living learning community on campus. So freshmen incoming living can live inside of essentially residence hall that's focused around that gaming culture celebration where gaming is for everyone, which for me at 18 years old is the first time I'm genuinely jealous of my incoming freshmen because that would have been transformative for me. Thinking about how introverted I was at that time. So now you're being put into a room, into a space where you get to live for your first year of life in your next chapter, where the one thing that you probably defaulted to as an escape to recharge your batteries or reconnect or disconnect is now celebrated, not ridiculed and not judged. And that builds a strong foundation for the 4 years ahead of that student. And so I'm really, really excited about seeing how that first cohort goes this fall, and then we'll eventually expand. Right now, it's only about 18 beds, but it will hopefully scale up to about 200 beds over the next 3 to 4 years.
That's awesome. I'm just going to jump in for a second, Moog. One of the things that we see in NASEF is the same, like the opportunity to meet kids where they are. And for us, we're starting earlier. We're starting in high school. And I've always said it's kind of, when you're a gamer, a lot of times your hobby is sort of like, you're a gamer. And when you take something that someone is passionate about and you elevate it and you say, this is important, we stand with you on this. You want to have a career in this, we're with you. You want to do this as an after-school club, we're with you. It changes their experience in school. And I know in NASEF, we see these massive increases in GPA, in attendance, in testing scores, and all of these things. And it's because you've taken something that matters to someone and you've said, if it matters to you, it matters to me. And it matters to the administration and the principal and the superintendent. And there's so much power in that. I love that you're taking that same approach there as well.
Right. And I think a big premise of that is I'm housed, when I first started this entire program, it was just an interest-based student org, elevating into departmentally student org inside of IT, which is hilarious because culturally, all IT people are gamers. I mean, at the core, the younger generation for sure. But the purpose of IT was to be agnostic. It's inside of the walls of every single building. And then eventually moved into student affairs, which again, if you have the word student over your head, it caters to you. It doesn't matter if it's athlete, it doesn't matter if you're STEM, STEAM, humanities, law, it doesn't matter. It blankets all of you. And OU is about a 32,000 student campus between its 3 locations across Oklahoma. And so now at 3,400 members in community, we are absolutely over 10%, which I think is becoming more and more of the trend across the entire space, which is great. So that's a big enough sample size to basically have an army to be able to request and borderline demand things and get stuff happening. Now, the pictures you're seeing right now are what we have, and right now is a preview space. So some of you are going to laugh at this, and I love it because I don't really care because, again, watch me cook, as many people have over 7 years. But this is a retrofitted Lululemon store that was part of a retail expansion inside of campus. This is literally in the first floor of the very dorms and residence halls where the Gamer House Living Learning Community is. So that first cohort lives right down the hall from it. There's 4 buildings that are symmetrical, each around 250 beds. So this one being in the northeast corner. But I did not want to build it in the Union. I did not want to build it anyway. I wanted to build it where the students leave. So when we say bring it to where they're at, I literally meant to bring it where they're at. Gamer hours are not during business hours. So where are they at in the evenings? They're here. So that allows us to also have strategic intention in regards to this location being 1.5 blocks south of a football stadium, which moving into the SEC is a D1 power school, and 1 block north of this amazing softball, brand new softball stadium that's also on its road to its 4th World Championship. So it allows us to tap into some of that is unique on a D1 campus, specifically with the athletics power that it represents. And now with EA college football and OU being in that game, this building faces 50,000 foot traffic every home game. So the intention of it was to become that community center, not exclusively for students. And the intention of the birth of it was, but now to extend into intramurals for all 3 campuses across Oklahoma, to tap into fan engagement benefits of the OU brand, and then leverage those things, whether it is a revenue generating mentality to feed students, or it is an opportunity for students just to have a place that's equivalent to a gamer gym, essentially. And so this will be open for 7-day operations. We piloted it in late March, but it'll be open for 7-day operations with move-in in early August. And then from there will be 7-day ops from that point forward. The second slide is the development side. So this side, while not a Lululemon store, was actually an AM/PM clinic. And so we retrofitted a doctor's office into becoming our spaces. So dedicated console space. In that first right picture, the ominous left one is one of the exam rooms. It's literally a doctor's office that has 5 PCs in it to make that team room. And so it served us very well. Now, when I call it a preview space, it's because it's scheduled for renovation next summer, so 25. And then it'll be properly themed and interconnected and everything. So it's total sum of around, I believe, 4,900 square feet for this space, one in post renovation. And then go ahead and go to the next slide. And so when we focused on path to industry, one thing that OU is known for as well is it has it's actually the second highest rated journalism school in the nation right now, based on certain standards. Everyone has their own different standards, but one of the big ones is just called BEA. OU's been ranked second consecutively now for 3 years. Well, they have a sports category in there, and now they do esports coverage, live interactive media. These are great ways to, again, take esports from the competition of winning against your adversary in a game like Valorant into saying now you have another competition aspect. Esports isn't exclusively about playing the game. It is now all of those supporting infrastructures and a way to celebrate them and also give them a North Star to focus on competition, which elevates the standards of production. So these the first two slides on the left are actually the doctor's offices 2 and 3. Retrofit as a quick and easy use 2-person caster production room. And then the third one is an augmented reality, virtual reality space that's meant for more of the individual streamer or virtual casters or standing productions. And so across the entire complex, there's 4 production studios, both focused again on either console, PC, or individual just entertainment focus. And then that last one, which was a no audio video. I don't know if you can hit play on that or not. It's okay if it doesn't.
I tried and it's not working.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay. So that was our black box theater, which I actually designed in 2016 before all of this even started. Which was, if you notice, I don't call this I don't call this an arena, as you're about to see with Full Sail, which is freaking amazing. I call it a complex on purpose because I wanted to maximize the square footage of the space that I did have to get as much foot traffic as possible to reach as many students as possible, versus sacrificing square footage to turn 6 or 10 computers sideways and basically have a very limited seating area. So with a D1 campus, I have a giant fishbowl of a basketball stadium. I have, other venues across campus that I can leverage for those maybe 20 to less activations in a 365 year. And so the Black Box Theater is a stopgap, small little arena space that I built as kind of a precursor to this before even knowing that this is what I was going to do with my life, just to have a cool gaming space on campus. But it's literally a blacked out room with probably over 25 fiber backbone, Ethernet drops in there, electrical plugs every 6 feet to line the walls with consoles or PCs, and to be able to scale up for event activations. And if we need something bigger than that, that's the basketball stadium or a ballroom down in the Union. So that's us.
Awesome. All right. Next up.
Next up is us. So we do call our esports space an arena, and I think the first shots that we have here can kind of show you why. As I mentioned at the beginning, all of the degrees at Full Sail focus on entertainment, media, arts, and technology. So we do not have traditional degree programs, and it's interesting. The interesting thing I think about Full Sail and just the way it's structured and what we do offer is that most students that come to Full Sail know exactly what they're going to do as soon as they graduate, which is fascinating to me. I still don't know what I'm going to do. But these students are unique. They're very unique, the ones that are kind of coming here. And show production and touring is one of our longest running degree programs, where they are learning how to set up spaces like this, how to build stages, how to program lights, how to figure out how lights are going to work, how to bring that show and that experience to anyone, esports or otherwise. So we built the Full Sail University Orlando Health Fortress we opened back in 2019. And that was with the intention of having a classroom that our students could work in. All of our degree programs are very hands-on. So learning how to program lights like this that you see in these photos from a book or a computer and not actually being able to do it is not going to make you very sufficient at graduation and actually going in and doing these things. And so this space is so that people can program within that space. Our arena itself, our esports arena, is a black box, and it is intended to be able to showcase all different types of competition and experiences that you might have as you're going to see in the industry. So we've done everything from, an open competitive all-call fighting game series. We've done invitationals. We've done show matches. We've done panels and presentations and every different aspect in between, because students need to know how to be able to set up for those spaces. Our arena is not where our varsity teams compete. It is a place that we have for events. And so does our varsity team compete there sometimes? Sure, we hold an event for them, but they have their own space on campus, which we will get to in one of the later slides. But for this one, it's specific to know that these spaces are used to bring clients in, for them to really be able to showcase what an event looks like so that our students have the ability to work on those client events. Full Sail does not generate revenue off of the use of this space. So when clients do come in, they come in pure partnership fashion. So example is we held a Red Bull fighting game event a couple of years back, and Red Bull brings in their entire front of house crew, their entire production crew, and they allow our students to shadow every single position that's there. So maybe one of the client will offer The lighting designer, well, a student will be able to be a lighting operator, and they'll work hand in hand in doing that. As our students kind of continue to move forward and they really elevate and excel through their studies, then they'll be able to work directly on these projects. And we have a full front of house staff on staff that essentially serves as faculty as well when they're teaching these programs. And so this space is really utilized to help leverage what esports events are here and what they're going to look like, and give our students that experience so that they're able to compete in it. But one of the biggest things about knowing how to work in esports and working in esports as a whole to know is that you don't just get to walk into an arena that's all set up and ready for esports and then you hold an esports event there. You have to be able to hold an esports event anywhere, because it's like Moog was just saying, you've got to bring it to them. And that's really what most of what you're going to find experiencing throughout the collegiate space is going to happen. So are there nice spaces like this? Absolutely. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we spend a lot of our time bringing esports to, oh, this is still that space. Someone has talked more about it. This is an example of different types of events that we have, and then a production studio that we do have connected to the space, because when our students are working on those events, they're doing everything through production, casting, start to finish. Our students are running the entire show. And so having the ability to understand how casting is going to work, we do have a full sports casting degree program, Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, where about 30% of those students are coming through wanting to be shoutcasters for esports. And so we connect hand in hand with that, those students as well. And then in the next slide, for real this time, is where you're going to see just various spaces that we have around our campus that are less flashy, but that more students you'll see. So the picture, the third photo that you see all the way on the right as you're looking at it, is our practice space for our students currently, our varsity athletes. We have about 80 varsity athletes that are competing across a multitude of titles. We also have a varsity stream team. I think we're still the only school in the U.S. that's doing that. Those students are considered varsity as well. They're held to the same GPA and professionalism standards that all of our competitive athletes are. They have to hit a certain amount of metrics before they can even try out to be on the stream team, and they have a certain element of commitment that they're required to do as being part of the stream team. For us at Full Sail, again, entrepreneurialism is a big part of what we do, and knowing that that's something that students were super interested in and was really drawing a lot of them to that, we wanted to provide the same formality that our competitive programs do from the streaming aspect of it. And so what our students are spending a lot of time doing is going into spaces that are not necessarily set up for esports events, big outdoor areas, big outdoor stages, classrooms around campus, and turning those spaces into competitive esports environments, places where they can compete. So we're kind of seeing the best of both sides, where we're walking into a, close to state-of-the-art facility where we can really produce fully robust esports events, and also learning how to convert your traditional and typical spaces into what those can be like for an experience for an esports competitor or spectator.
We all want spaces, like all three of you just showed. I mean, they're incredible, and I saw the comments in the chat to the same effect. Like, wow, this is amazing. But I think the core that you get to from all of your comments is all of this is designed for practical experience in the fields that these students are going to pursue, and that's so important. So, and I just want to highlight that that's the same thing that we do at NASEF. We're about helping kids acquire STEAM-based skills, acquire life skills while they're in the esports environment. It's not about developing the best gamer necessarily. It's about the best gamer as a human being, but not as a skill set. I'll put it that way. So there are a couple of different associations. And Sari, why don't you tell us a little bit about NACE?
Sure. So NACE is National Association of Collegiate Esports, which is misleading because we do represent Canada as well. And I know our friends in Canada are fighting for a name change. But it currently represents close to 300 members all across the US and Canada that have official and really, I guess, support and in both financial and administrative support for varsity programs on their campus. So the requirements to be a NACE member is that there is at least one full-time staff member associated with that college or university's esports program, that there's a dedicated space on campus for students to play. NACE members are required to compete in person for all NACE member competition. And then there's eligibility requirements as far as years of eligibility, GPAs that are outlined and required by each individual program, and just, kind of competitive standards and baseline for what that is. But in the grand scheme of things, what NACE really does represent is it's a member organization. So as we all know, as we've kind of entered this space, there is not an agency that's kind of offering governance over what it is that we do. And quite frankly, I don't know that there will be, nor that that's necessarily something that we're looking for. I think the beauty of esports is that no matter what type of program you have, there's a place that you can fit. And I think having those varieties and those opportunities is really what makes our landscape so wonderful. And what they're trying to do at the NACE level is for those varsity programs that are really competing at that level or trying to fold into what varsity athletics might be used to, having a platform and a place where members and directors and leaders can get together and develop the legislation that's needed for that level of competition, I think is what's important. So this is really a place where members are coming together. We're navigating through things like honestly, eligibility and the poaching of players from different universities and how that's going to work. And when COVID came and when remote play kicks in and when remote play doesn't kick in, and how to handle things like schedule changes and school breaks and varying levels of competition, and how to connect back through with publishers and how those are supposed to really kind of work and navigate as we're growing through within this space. And so what NACE really offers is, yes, they offer varsity competition and they offer a network for those school leaders to really come together, kind of learn off of each other, and really develop a baseline of infrastructure that we can kind of all learn from and figure out how to continue to elevate the legitimacy of what it is that we're doing here within esports.
Oh. And in case you're wondering, I asked Sari to talk about NACE because she is your chair of the board, correct?
I am. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I'm chairman of the board for NACE.
Yes.
And I have been serving on the board now for almost 2 years, and I've been the chair of the board for just under a year at this point.
Okay, awesome. Kevin, you and I on the West Coast, I feel like every time I pull up one of these that's a map of esports, we have some work to do out here where you and I are based. But I know you're
previous schools too. I'm looking at Arizona like, why is that so empty? I was just over there working with them. So, it's
right.
We're working on it.
Exactly. Yes. But it is exciting to see the growth and development. And I think the kind of the standardization that you're describing, Sari. Another great organization is NACAD, and I know that they have members that are both high school and collegiate esports coaches and directors. So as you're looking for resources for how to build out programs or places to connect with others, obviously today you're hearing a lot of information, and you can tell the benefit of being in one of these associations just for the networking alone, and to learn from your peers is really valuable as well. And then Moog, there's a fairly new organization, the President's Advisory Council. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this council, first of all, I sit on the board for VOICE, which is the Voice of Intercollegiate Esports, is what the acronym stands for. It was actually founded a couple of years ago. I came in a bit after they got founded, once they finally got some traction and we started to actually focus the purpose of this organization. But this President's Council, which is one of 3 councils that is being erected. The second one is the Competition Council, which NACE is a part of as well, as an example. But the next one being a Collegiate Directors Council, specifically to be more on the what the director's perspective is versus top level kind of macro perspectives. This President's Council, one, was an act of Congress to just get these people to come into a room together at the same time. That was nuts. That took, I think, about 18 months of specific coordination to make this become to the point where it's marketable. But the purpose of this council was that if we don't have our top level administration at least buying in some capacity, then we are working 4 times as hard to move the needle just 1 degree further. And I think that all of us represent energies that are well past those initial energies. We're past the initial concept deals. We're past doing the 101s all the time. We're past all these things when we talk about it. That's why we're, considered the subject matter experts in a panel like this. That's the reason we get brought in and invited to these things. So that means that our representation at the top above us needs to start acting accordingly as well. So in that this council is really focused around what do presidents value when it comes to seeing this program, this thing that we want the support of a president, which then brings in the support of a board of regents potentiality or donors or alumni, because now the university narrative is much higher. What do they value? And so one of the first pieces of research that we did was an eligibility paper, as Sari already alluded to, in regards to things that NASE is working on, to provide a perspective about eligibility across everything in the collegiate sphere. So you can see in that piece of documentation how the NCAA at the Division I level provides athletic governance, how a chess organization as well vetted, does it in regards to these in our sector. So it provides just a perspective of a narrative of comparison, not to say that anything should be copy and pasted, but to provide comparative nature to also inject inside of the world of academia, which doesn't follow the same logical world of, logic in general at times. But the point is that how do we can't start moving mountains without the highest form of our leadership being able to make those mandates and be able to advocate for those causes. Now, for all intents and purposes, President's Council is very much a one-on-one session again. Here's what it is, here's what's capable of, and here's what we need. And they lean on their advisors, the VP levels, to advise them, sure, and internally. However, for them to make a statement like this is a very different narrative. Imagine if a group of 300 student organization birthed departments now in esports, as most of us represent as our timelines, goes to a developer to ask for licensing or tournament rules or things like this in the context of, hey, we're a big body of people, you should support us. But yet we have not the greatest relationship with a lot of the developers in regards to how they support the educational space. But when you start throwing university presidents at a Blizzard Activision or something else, the narrative changes a little bit. Very similar to the fact that now you have a full might of a university and all of its endowments and all of its things represented at the highest form. There is nobody higher to basically make that request formally. So that's not necessarily the intention of it, but it starts to take shape in regards to if university presidents, from a compromise or from an order of conversation and compromise and deliberation, say that these things are what we value, then you do get to a point where you're saying, hey, then I think that some governance needs to either be uniformed across these different leagues. And so the sensitivities become, again, the specific niches, online versus physical, resource availability versus not, student org versus varsity, investment into programs to create some balance of a uniform landscape where there is at least a level plateau for which we all catapult from. That's just history repeating itself. I don't look at that as anything innovative. That is literally history starting over again. And sure, we don't want to produce the worst of all four-letter words, which isn't an F word, it's an N word with NCAA. But there's a lot of lessons to learn there. And there's a lot of things to not do and to do. And so in that same vein, it's about being a good steward of history, of saying, all right, we need the highest form of leadership to allow the ship to move. It's the workforce that's going to feed the engines to make it go. And it's all of the support structure on the boat that's going to make the boat operate at all. And so the part that's been missing largely, not exclusively, but largely from a lot of our university campuses is senior level VP or presidential buy-in to the point of saying, oh, I support esports. That's not what this is. I'm saying we support esports. This is what we value. This is what we're going to invest in from a president's seat. And so especially when we look at the brands on this specifically, the biggest demographic of collegiate representation at highest form of execution have been the D1s, D1 powers, especially because we're not as agile. We're fat and we're, there's a lot of things happening on our campuses. It doesn't mean that they're superior in any way. It's just a different paradigm and a different political landscape, bureaucracy, and policies, especially if it's public in general, and the way that the red tape and tax dollars and things like that flow. But when they start moving and they start investing, then things start to shift and things start to change. And that's the biggest thing that I worry about, being at a D1 myself, is that the amount of work, especially some of the small schools, and when I say small schools, when I'm talking about schools that are smaller than the size of my student org at 3,400 members, have been amazing champions in the space of esports, and they deserve a seat at the table no matter what in the future. However, at the same point, you can lean on the D1s. Don't look at the D1s as being don't vilify the D1s. You leverage the D1s as a means to push the needle forward for the collective, so that all can raise the boats for everyone. And some people have bigger megaphones just because of the history of the last century. And if you leverage that properly, then everyone can eat and benefit equally.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's really exciting to see. I know the day I saw this news, I thought, all right, because you're right. The support from the top is very important. And I know, I know Kevin has that. I know Sari has that, but not everyone is fortunate enough. And so to have a group that is really focusing on this and providing leadership so that other university presidents can say, okay, I see this. This is legitimate. That makes a big difference. Just two other things that I wanted to share really quickly. And I know this is changing all the time. Again, West Coast needs a little work, but let's not forget there are scholarships available, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And we've also talked about the career applications. And I thought this was interesting. I'd be interested to see an update to this more recently. But the study preferences, what are kids majoring in if they are seeking a scholarship in esports? STEM, no surprise, is a huge factor, and arts not as much, but I think that will be growing. As we said earlier, business and finance, this is an entrepreneurial field, right? If you're headed into esports, I don't care what line of work you are in under that esports umbrella, you are an entrepreneur, you're a creative, you are agile on your feet, or you are not going to survive in this industry because it changes, I think, just about every day. So thank you so much for just the context and the framing of what you're doing in your programs, of the different opportunities that are available as far as membership and support. So let's just talk about, I'm coming at this from a high school perspective as NASEF. So tell me a little bit about opportunities that high school students have as they move into the collegiate world. And I'll just open it up. Anyone jump on it.
I'll jump in because I'm always excited about that. And we've been lucky enough to partner with a neighboring school district. So we're also very close to LA County Unified, which is one of the largest school systems in the US as well. But with Compton Unified, they are our partner school district. And so we've actually had students that have gone through their programs at the high school level, and they focus more so on inter-district competition. So they'll bring like Rocket League teams from all their middle schools and host that competition, broadcast it, etc. They've done that for many years. And we've had a couple students come through there now, one of which now is the captain for our Overwatch team. So he came in with a set of leadership skills and a core understanding of what esports is, what it's not, how competition can be leveraged and how it's inappropriate to leverage at times. And knowing that distinction and leveraging that in the correct way, was able to become a leader amongst his peers, even as a freshman. And now I think he's going into a senior year. That team has 3 championship victories, and they've really spearheaded not just esports on our campus, but esports at the CSU as well. They've won amongst them as their peers there. And it's a success story, but it's not the exception to the rule. It happens all the time, where if you're providing these opportunities for students at a high school level to get involved more so than just competing, right? Because competing's fun and exciting, and it's sort of the carrot at the end of the stick that gets people into what they're doing. But then you can leverage that to say, hey, let's learn about shoutcasting. Let's learn about TV production. Let's learn about team communication and scheduling amongst schools with competing responsibilities and things that can't be shifted. And when you come out of that system into the college space, those are the students I'm interested in as well, that can be leaders, that can be responsible, take on work, know how to hit deadlines, but also how to voice when there's concerns and problems and issues. And there's a lot of soft skills like that that come from participating at the high school level. So we're starting to see it already. And the more it's growing, the more I believe it will continue to unfold in esports. And that will become a sought after resume item to say, I was involved not just at the high school level, but also at the college level. And now I'm using that to get a job in any industry. And I wanted to call back to your major breakdown there, just that we have, yes, it's skewed the STEM way, of course, but there on our campus, every single major that we offer is represented in our organization. I think that's a testament to just how diverse it is, and how if you're interested in something, and maybe it's not even esports, I'm just going to advocate from the academic side that whatever your interests are, to find a way to relate that to what you're studying, because you are going to learn far better doing it that way than by just trying to grind through your classes all day, every day. So that's a little bit about how we do it. We're not there to scholarships yet. It's my next big push. Again, the budgeting is becoming, the public universities, as Moog had mentioned, it takes a while to get the ship moving, but once it does, we're hoping that it'll kind of expand that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's awesome. And what Kevin just said is so true. And I never really thought about the question until you asked it. But when I see students, which I'm seeing a lot more of now, that like they started the esports club at their high school, or they started their esports, it is like those are the best kids. And when they come in with that sort of mindset and know that they know how to build a community, that is one of the strongest foundations I think that you can have as you come into this space, no matter what it is that you want to do. Because the truth of the matter is, being in this space, are there best practices? Sure. And are they going to change in 90 days? Probably. Because we're new, and in the grand scheme of things, no matter how long that this has been in existence, as far as infrastructure goes, it's all still relatively new. And so pivoting and being flexible and being adaptable really becomes the most important skill set that you have as you're coming into this space, no matter if you're coming from a technical perspective, from a gameplay perspective, from a leadership perspective, or from an events perspective, knowing that what you did last time might not work again this time, and we're going to have to learn about it, read about it, figure it out, and move on, is key. And those students that came in and started that already with their peers in another organization, that really is what, that's kind of like that pivotal student, I think, to me, as we see come in, because they are all coming in for different reasons, and they're all coming in for different aspects. And we've hit a point where I think if we did this panel 3 years ago, we'd be in a different place. But we've hit a point now where competitive is kind of second to community, production, tech, streaming, casting, etc. That's where those students are really like kind of coming and leading themselves to. And so it's those foundational skills that are so important, and being able to find that community at an early age kind of helps you sort of understand where you need to be and understand what you're walking into. And that would involve anywhere. So like at your own schools in high school, for sure, volunteering at things like DreamHack or PAX or any local high school events, fighting game events. If you get any experience with any sort of fighting game tournament, that's trial by fire right there. But anything that you can do, just they're all looking for people, whether it's handing out credentials or helping serve as a TO. Being able to understand that network and that community is crucial, and is really what it is that I think most of us are looking for, because the skills are going to change 3 times while you're here, and knowing that you're able to change with them is really the important foundation of what that is. And I also, commenting to what Kevin was saying about seeing the different majors, it is interesting. We have a very high population of creative writing students in our esports program. And I always find that fascinating, because it shows that at the end of the day, the games are still telling you stories, and that's really what everybody's here to kind of be a part of and to engage with. And I've said so many times over the years, and thankfully I have to say it less now, but like when someone comes in, I love Call of Duty. I'm so good at Call of Duty, playing Call of Duty my whole life, and I love it, and I'm so good at it, so I'm going to work for Call of Duty. I'm going to play competitive Call of Duty. I said, well, I love how much you love Call of Duty. Loving Call of Duty is not enough to let you work for anybody that makes Call of Duty. So what are we going to do with that love to make sure that we can kind of lend itself to where it needs to go? And for us, we've seen it full circle now quite a few times. My favorite are we've got 2 grads that work for Treyarch Studios in the game design sector, and both of them scored interviews, and they were on our teams. One was on our Overwatch team, one was on our Call of Duty team. At different times, they didn't play together, and they didn't interview together, but they both ended up at the studio, both being told that playing competitive esports in college is what got their resumes to the top of the pile, because they understand that that aspect, the amount that these studios are starting to understand what it goes into from an esports community perspective, from an esports competitive perspective, of what it is that you're going to have to know. And they're starting to see those things as coming full circle, as working in the game industry itself, whether it's esports or otherwise. And so I think that connection is also super cool.
I'm gonna date myself depending on the audience, but I'm gonna reference Karate Kid specifically, and Sari just alerts to exactly something that I say all the time, is that to students, or at least in leadership conversations about, we teach students techniques and we teach student mentalities and philosophy and ideology and certain different thoughts. What we're doing is teach them how to paint a fence in theory, but in reality, they're learning how to block a punch. They don't understand how they translate the things that they're passionate about into workforce. And gamers, especially a large percentage, especially on the STEM field, tend to be pretty weak in interpersonal skills, like on a percentage basis, not exclusively, again, across the board, but a large percentage of them struggle with the ability to communicate in the first place. And so I focus on, there's two kind of main things that I really, really like to focus on. First is accountability. I don't care if it's bad or good, just be accountable to it and we can work past it or we can amplify it. If you can understand accountability, you can understand a lot really fast. And in tandem with that, also that failure is just a part of success and it's just part of everyday life. The irony is that gamers play a video game, die multiple times in an hour time frame, continue, but yet they can't apply that in the real world. So that's one of the hardest kind of philosophy and mental blocks that I have in translating. Obviously, the real world is scary and I can just hit the start button and continue the video game. Yes, but the reality is, how do you do that so that you can roll with the punches? But the other part of it is also pushing them to understand the power of their own voice. And it's almost like we're just holding a mirror up to them. And for whatever reason, they're only looking at the mirror where they have a perspective of this wide. And our job is to take 5 steps back, which opens the perspective, 10 steps back, opens the perspective even further. And then you start to find that, oh my goodness, I am actually dynamic. Yes, you might be introverted and a little lurky over there in the corner, but the fact that you can coordinate and communicate effectively in a digital world, welcome to workforce in 2024. The fact that you can be accountable to showing up for team practices and that you can communicate effectively in real-time millisecond responses is also risk management and the ability to be reactionary in the times of crisis, which happen. Not everything has to be a massive crisis, but if something messes up in logistics on a day-to-day operations, you don't freak out, you adapt and you move forward. And then even further is that you now are proud of yourself. Because you've accomplished it. That self-satisfaction, that self-actualization, the dream of that hierarchy, we have a large portion in to bring them closer to that. And a big portion of it is to not necessarily be the steering wheel of their ship. It is literally just to be that coach for a minute and just say, hey, just think about this slightly different. Just think about that slightly different. You're already doing it. Just think about it and apply it slightly different. And then at that point, you're already piloting, you're piloting your own plane, you're the captain of your own ship, and you've always been, you've just never looked at yourself that way. And I find that heavily, and I'll reference League of Legends culture. So if you're a League of Legends player, you're definitely this demographic more than not, which tend to struggle the most with talking any way away from the game. It is one of the most comical things to me to watch them go to dinner together because it's just like silent hour. And I'm like, guys, like get hyped. It's okay. Like these are your safe place. Now, granted, it's probably because I'm in the room. But you take me out of the room and you hear the voice comms, they're completely different people. So introverts become extroverted when they're around people of similar interests. That's the same for any demographic. And it's really about leveraging gaming as a means that we do not define gamer by gender. We do not define gamer by race. We do not define gamer by political affiliation or religious affiliation. We don't define gamer by anything but the love of a game or a platform, period. And anything against that narrative is the fight that we have. That's truly the bigger fight because, again, we talk about gender representation in gaming. We have an opportunity in that regard of mentoring, especially the K-12 side being very critical to this development time as it continues to mature, in the same way that we teach sportsmanlike conduct at 6 years old in a t-ball field. But we're not doing that at 6 years old in gaming. That's digital literacy in elementary. And so for OU specifically, we got really fortunate in that if Mike Shipley's still in chat, shout out to you, but executive director of Oklahoma Scholastic Esports organization here, which I think is over 270 high schools in Oklahoma, over 60 or 70 middle schools, and now elementary schools. So in the state of Oklahoma, there is now esports intentional programming for grades 4 and up. Now, I don't want K3 in the same vein. K3 should be digital literacy focused in regards to, hey, if you're playing Roblox or Minecraft and you're losing your mind because you died or something got you, that's that opportunity to step in the same way that if you're throwing a tantrum because you lost your T-ball match. This is the same exact thing. It's 100% the same. But as those mature over time and we start to get those those student founders that built their school's programs and more of that, then the scene should get easier and more creative on our side because we're not spending the first year in psychological development in regards to saying, hey, don't talk like that to that person on the game. Don't act that way. Actually have a decent sleep schedule. Like literally find those balances and help them be a little bit more independent in the right ways. So that 5 to 10 year mark from today, when that becomes exponentially more mature across the board, will be a breath of fresh air for I think everybody. But for the collegiate space, we won't be recruiting 18-year-olds who have never been on a team structure before, aside from their friends, because that literally takes 6 months at a minimum of psychological kind of, hey, cause and effect. If you do that, it's going to cause them to do this. Instead, they'll already hit the ground running. The same way that athletes are recruited into athletics programs in college. They already had 10 years plus of mentoring and coaching at a minimum, typically. So again, history repeats itself. I don't look at that as anything innovative. I do not look at that personally as anything innovative. I look at history repeating itself for a new context and a new topic. It has some new challenges that are the innovative component, but the macro story of all of it is history repeating itself for a new demographic. And I think it was 2019 or 2020, I think it was ESA, Esports Scholastic Association, that put out the research. That was 65% of all 18 to 29-year-olds play a video game of some sort. That's our primary undergraduate demographic. And then it was a gender split of 45-55 male bias, which is much closer than most people think. So where are all the women? Like, those are the questions that again, as directors that are building cultures and communities around the topic of gaming, which inspires esports pathways, those are things that we can resolve and that we can look at and advocate for and build up for, because there's obvious differences between anybody's different demographics, from walk of life, your socioeconomic backgrounds and where you come from, your gender backgrounds, and how you look at the world, religious values, political values, all of that can be considered. But all of those things are what's needed to move this needle forward, because you can reference the culture. We label gamer as this generic term, but the problem is that you can't say somebody who plays Genshin Impact is anything like somebody who plays Call of Duty. They're completely different types of people. And the challenge is, how do you cater to as many of those as possible, if not all? So I'll leave this with my last kind of soapbox, kind of Moog Fuchsia's kind of statement. I learned this at a TED Talk. When I gave a TED Talk, I had another peer who gave this amazing kind of perspective on inclusivity. Whereas, diversity is walking into a room where everybody of different backgrounds, everything is present. Inclusivity is walking into a room with people of different backgrounds, but there's a table and a place setting for everybody. But welcoming, the part that's the hardest, is that you walk into a room with a diverse pool of people, with a place setting for everyone to sit, but also a menu that caters to everyone's palate. That last part is the hardest thing to do. It requires the most intention, but gaming has that wonderful opportunity of being that high of a calling. And when you have that as kind of your North Star and guidance and building inclusive programs, and the thing with this is that, again, these things are by default inclusive, and that's where it's really dangerous. Gaming is an inclusive topic by default. Esports is an exclusive topic by default, because only 5 people get to play on that team. Only 5. So what am I going to do with the other 31,995 students? And I focus on the 31,000 because the 5 is the default. Like, as Sari was kind of alluring to, it's kind of like okay, but what can we do with some creative developments with it? So also in the context of that, to double down on it, for OU, we did offer scholarships from 21 till fall of 23, and then I canceled all of them this last semester from an esports perspective and doubled down on the academic scholarship opportunities. So focusing more of the central kind of bucket that's already there from an admissions and recruitment standpoint. And I converted whatever I had left in salary or in scholarship into salary. So we onboarded 40 student jobs practically overnight in February to create pathways for producers, shoutcasters, event planners, turn TOs, and everything else. So the scholarships get you in the door of the university in this chapter. The jobs get you out the door. So build that resume, build that portfolio as strong as possible. So now this upcoming year, there is a potentiality for a 4-year incoming freshman to have a job in the topic of esports, who's drawing a paycheck, and that they are having accountability and things like this on top of the grade point checkpoint averages, on top of their academic excellence. But they're building a portfolio and resume that is saying, I have a Division I Power 5 university brand as my employer, and I've got 4 years of experience. And by the time I'm 23, I am marketable.
All right. That's awesome. And I feel like with NASEF, we're trying to start similar programs for these high school students, and all the way down. We do have clubs that go all the way down to elementary, lots of them, which is so exciting for us, because I picture, and when we started, I think seems like all of our programs sort of started like 7-ish, 9-ish years ago. We started about 7 years ago. And I just could picture this little ripple in a pond, where if we impact this group of students and then you drop that pebble in the pond, then you feel the changes throughout, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And pretty soon it's going to be a giant boulder that's dropping in the pond, with all of us having these same emphases that you do. You're talking a lot about building community, and we did a survey. The first 4 years that NASEF was around, we had University of California, Irvine surveying coaches and parents and administrators and leaders and trying to help shape what would this program, how could it be the best? And one of the studies that I love, I pulled it up to make sure I had the statistic correct, surveying parents, 100% of the parents said that there is a benefit of community for their kids being in these esports programs. 100% of people would not agree that Moog is wearing a Nike shirt right now, right? I mean, 100% is an impossible statistic to get to. Yet 100% of parents were saying, my child has built a stronger community because of esports. And it's funny because that's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people picture esports to be. They think of gaming as isolating, but it's not. It's building these communities. So we have just a few minutes left. So I just wanted to ask also, because the Esports Trade Association has lots of members that are businesses and corporations, as I said at the beginning, what are some ways, and you get like 1.5 minutes each to say, what are some ways that these companies could work with your universities?
Sure. I'll jump right in. I think the initial one is obviously in-kind donations. So that could be cash, it could be product, it could be support for a panel, it could be jobs and internships. We've had a couple that were like, we can provide 5 internships that are application portals only for students that were at CSUDH Esports, right? Those are opportunities that can help as well. But ultimately, like, we cannot be successful without having some sort of support at some level. So for us individually, and this could be different depending on the campus, really just having access to resources, whether that's financial or that's product or PCs or desks or chairs or whatever it is, that can usually get the most bang for your buck. And we can, of course, in turn, put you on jerseys, on Twitch streams, on websites, all the things that would make that partner happy. But at the same time, ultimately, the core values still have to align. If that company or organization or group does not follow the same student success mottos that we follow, then there's not a point in working with them. And it's not any, reason to say negative things about a specific company, but if they don't align with us, then ultimately we're not going to make each other more successful.
Right.
All I'm thinking is Bad News Bears when you say that. I'm just thinking of Bad News Bears. Both versions.
Yeah.
I'll jump in there. All that's exactly the same. It's brand alignment in regards to the objectives of what you want. One thing that I will add to that from my perspective, campus, is that here's a piece of the SEC for a fraction of the cost of being in the SEC. For those brands that matter or that value that type of exposure in that context. Everything is for sale, including buildings. So that creates, again, different types of conversations in regards to fundraising, philanthropy, and as well as sponsorships. And so when I say everything is for sale, I mean the titles of roles, the department's names, the team's names, the building itself, the different rooms, the different areas, different event activations, all of it is a conversation. And so the best way to start is not to just throw money at it. I would much rather just say, sure, I love in kind, and I love for, a surprise kind of, hey, here's a $500 contribution you just randomly got, versus building an actual relationship with donors that says, how do we amplify the things that you value? Even if you just want to support students, I would love to highlight the fact that the support of students is the narrative that wants to be done, instead of just saying, I have this name, and then I kind of have to reverse engineer that conversation. I would much rather take $5 from someone who has a conversation than $100 from someone who just kind of donates it. I'm going to still take the $100, let's be real. But at the same point, I love storytelling. I love the symbolism of people being inspired to donate or contribute to something that speaks to them. And I love amplifying that message, because how many of us can see ourselves in other people that we didn't know if we don't ever showcase them? Hence why esports is an entertainment industry. And if you cannot highlight the gameplay and the narrative and the showcase and the emotional draw of it, why would anybody care? So that's the same difference as why do we watch the Super Bowl? Yes, we all love to hate on refs. That's still a mechanic of being a fan of sports, to hate on officiators. Whether it's a team brand, whether it's the halftime show and it's always controversial context or something. The point is that all of those aspects are things that we have on our campuses that we teach. That is the bigger draw. That is the bigger opportunity of saying, how do you actually get the dollar in the door, is create the connectivity so that people can be a part of it too, not just the students.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll add to, Moog kept saying a word that was going through my head before, and it's the word amplify. And that's really at the baseline what I think a lot of us are looking for. we don't want to be known. We want our students to be known. We want their efforts to be known. And if you're following us in any way or following the aspect of what we're doing and you see things and you can amplify it in any way, that's really the lowest form of involvement that we would love to have from pretty much anybody that can be there, is that our students are doing some really fantastic things and we just want the world to know about it. And the more that you can do to help us tell that story or spread that message is helpful to all of us. And in true, esports form, yes, there's sponsorships when it comes to that conversation, but I think for all of us, we're really looking for true partnerships. I know there's a lot of organizations that are really looking to try to figure out a way in with esports or figure out how to get involved. And most of us are at the same point of, there's a lot that we need and there's a lot that we can use to help. And so let's sort of create the partnership that works best for both organizations, where we can both benefit from what that is. Keeping yourself open to that conversation rather than handing a pitch deck is going to be a lot more fruitful, I think, for both sides of the conversation. So I would recommend that as well.
All awesome feedback and input. I would echo the same for NASEF. We're working with students from, third grade and even younger in some cases, all the way up through high school. And there are so many opportunities to connect these kids to programs, to challenges, to help them highlight what they can do already in high school. It's amazing what these high schoolers are doing already. So as much as, organizations are interested in helping amplify that, we would love to have that. So thank you, all three of you, so very much for joining today. This has been a fantastic conversation. I saw some people saying, is the recording available? Yes, the recording is available. This will be on LinkedIn and then also available through the Esports Trade Association. I have to put in a plug because I work for NASEF. We are a nonprofit. It is completely free to join and to get access to loads of resources if you're building a high school program. And then also coming up soon, we do have Esports Next conference. This particular session that I've highlighted here, exactly what we've been talking about, a session on producing a tournament and what goes into that. I know we have a couple of NASEF Scholastic Fellows that will be presenting at that. So Esports Next is a great conference if you're trying to find your place in this connection between the educators and the businesses. This is a great place for you to be. Thank you so much for joining. I have my email address here if you have questions or if you want to get a hold of these folks who are on here. Please feel free to email and let us know, or reach out on LinkedIn, or whatever works the best for you. But again, thank you to all three of you for joining today, and we'll see you next time around.
Thanks, friends.